And the number 700 is Chibai. But if you say Jibai, it is the vulgar way of saying you're in Taiwanese.
Welcome to another episode of Primary Care. I'm your host, Dr. Hendricks. This episode of Primary Care is sponsored by Rugiet Health. More than just an ED treatment.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I'm Dr. Tyler Hendricks.
I'm Adam Mathias. I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, raised in Idaho, jumped to Portland, Oregon, where I went to school, and got a job over in Raleigh, North Carolina, doing cancer research.
Wow.
Yeah, which was amazing. Gentleman who started the company, one of the co-founders, he's Taiwanese, and he came up to me and he's like, "Man, you should come and work with me and my family in Taiwan."
Wow.
So I jumped across the sea and told myself I'd be there for 2 or 3 to try it, and I stayed for 7.
With your time in Asia, what was some of the most memorable things that you kind of walk away with?
I had the most rambunctious experiences dating. That was really interesting. Dating was one. Language was another one where it's like, you got to swallow your pride and you got to jump in.
Yeah.
One of the most embarrassing moments that I've really ever had as a human was like, I had been in Taiwan for 2 weeks. When I moved there, I'd never been to Asia. I didn't know language. I literally got off the plane with my clothes, and I had my mentor, Shifong, who's, 68 years old. We're not going out to clubs. He's not helping me, mingle.
Right.
I was studying, and I was like, dude, I'm going to go down to the market. I'm going to get us the groceries. He's like, are you sure? Yeah, man, I've been studying. I got this. So such a sweet dude. He writes down what to get. He writes it in English. He writes the Chinese, and then he writes it in Pinyin, which is kind of like English letters, and it's phonetically spelled so that you can actually pronounce it right.
That's incredible.
So it was, and he just did this for the whole list. So I'm going there and I'm learning all these, vegetables and baozi and these dumplings and all this other kind of stuff. And so I get all the shit and I'm walking up to pay and I pull out my money and I look at this poor old lady and I'm like, Jibai, which the number 700, she's like, Liu bai ba shi qi, and I'm like, okay, 687. And I'm like, okay. And I pull out 700, and the number 700 is Chibai. But if you say Jibai, you're saying the number 700, excuse my language, but it is the vulgar way of saying you're pussy in Taiwanese. In like a proposition type. And so I'm like, I have 700. I'm like, Jibai.
Oh my gosh.
And I just like an idiot. I just keep repeating myself because have you ever said something to somebody where immediately you can tell they're like you've said something wrong and I didn't steer somewhere different. I just kept waving money. Jibai.
Oh my
and
God.
so I pulled out my phone and I typed 700 and she's like, oh, Chibai. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I go back upstairs. I've got everything and I'm like, Shifong, what's Jibai? And he's like, where did you hear this word? I'm like, I was trying to say it 700. He's like, oh my God. He's like, I never saw that poor woman again at the market. I'm sure she probably was just mortified. She's like, I'm done. This is it. Last straw. I'm out of here. Peace. So,
language is crazy.
It was wrestling with that was a great experience and very humbling.
Yeah.
I think if you put yourself out there like that and you allow yourself to be vulnerable and, be embarrassed and just work through it, you learn a lot about yourself.
For sure. I think that's really the key of life is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, be embarrassed. It's fun. It's a part of life. It's part of learning. I'm horrible with language, so I can only imagine. I took 6 years of Spanish and I can say hola and, I can talk about the library being blue, but that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I've also always challenged with languages and I think Chinese is just ridiculously hard. It is so freaking hard.
I'm sure being immersed in it is probably the most helpful. I look at my partner, Gabriel. He has grown up in Brazil and American culture is very important there. It's kind of everywhere. And so he, I think at age 2 was watching, Snow White and things that were very helpful for him to learn English. But beyond that, he was able to move here and really assimilate super quickly. His language skills continue to evolve past mine. I feel like I'm still learning English. I say to myself, some people get it naturally, right? It works better for them, but because I'm so jealous.
Yeah, for real.
I cannot learn a language.
My buddy's kid, he's 8 now. He speaks 3 languages, Japanese, Chinese, English, and it's
jealous.
little shit.
I know. For sure. But, it does challenge me. Gabriel's always like, you can do anything, because that's what I tell him.
It's true, though. It is true. Like, it is all about the application, the discipline, the work. You got to put in the work.
There's 2 places I would love to go, and that's the Philippines and Thailand. Have you been to those places before?
I was just in Thailand. Wow. Philippines is one of my favorite places I've ever been. And it's just, the people are so extremely friendly. The culture is so open. Yep. The countries are beautiful. They're beautiful. For a lot of Asian countries, there's a true sense of community within the country.
Yeah.
I do believe that is one of the things we miss the most. I lived in Taipei, right? And Taipei is 6 million people. And if you are a single female in your 20s and you are blitzed drunk at 3 a.m., you could literally be walking in any part of the city and no one's going to mess with you. In fact, people might come up to you and be like, hey, can I help you? Where are you trying to go?
Wow.
Fascinating, right? I mean, just, it is the safest place I've ever lived in my life.
I feel like fear is really a main theme living in the United States. I mean, I think it really hit its tipping point during COVID. I never had the news on 24 hours a day on a TV. And then when COVID hit, that's what I was doing. And I've really had a lot of difficulty pushing that out. I still check CNN, MSNBC on my phone. Like, it's almost like Instagram. You just automatically do it. And like, I'm constantly feeding myself with negativity. And it's always been there. There's been negative news since the dawn of time.
Right.
I'm just putting too much of it in my brain. And so I'm consciously trying to push it away because I don't want to be scared every day.
Yeah.
I think what I often hear, what leads me to even feel that way myself, is a lot of times when I'm watching a political ad or when they're talking about politics, it's like, this person wants to take your freedom away, not our freedoms away. Like, it's always phrased directly to you as if, they're speaking directly to you. They are coming for you, not us, because us is a big group, right?
Right.
They can't really take on us.
But they can get you.
They can get you. And, your neighbors might be with them. So be careful about your neighbors and be careful about the people in your community because you can't trust anyone. Yep. And I've soaked a lot of that up growing up. I feel a lot of that, especially I think too, just being on the queer side of things. I'm a little bit like, is everyone going to shoot me? Yeah. It's just life.
It's good practice.
Obviously, I think everyone out there loves to travel, whether we can or can't, based on whatever reasons. So where are some of your favorite places to go? I just have to know because you seem like a very well-traveled individual.
Probably one of the most memorable traveling experiences I ever had was South Africa.
Wow.
I went there because I wanted to get in a cage and dive with great white sharks.
Wow.
Yes.
Whatever gets you there.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I'm kind of an extreme sports person. I love adrenaline. Our time at being healthy, physically fit, it's limited.
Very.
So it can be gone in a blink of an eye. So while I'm young, I want to be able to do these things. I want these experiences. And to me, adrenaline is like this rush of life. It's like, oh my gosh. So South Africa, I got to dive with great white sharks. I love nature. I love animals. So it's like they've got penguins there.
Crazy.
They've got lions and rhinoceros. And Cape Town is probably aesthetically the most spectacular city in the world that I've ever been to. It is just jaw-dropping. The surrounding areas, it's so beautiful. Japan is probably my favorite country.
So badly.
Like top to bottom, it's my favorite. I just had my birthday in February, and so wanted to go snowboarding in Japan. And Japan has been closed for the last 3 years. I was like, all right, I've got some snowboarding buddies, because when I was in Taiwan, I surfed all the time there. You can hike. There's great hiking, like amazing stuff, right? But there's no place to snowboard.
Gotcha.
Well, Japan's only a 3-hour flight, and they have world-class snowboarding. And so we used to go there all the time, at least once a winter. And so this was the first time that, it was like, all right, they're open. I know I live in the U.S., but I'm going over there. So I packed up my snowboard, planned it with my friends. We had like 8 people that we just snowboarded for like 4 days in Japan. Tokyo is just the most incredible city. It's massive, multicultural. Anything that you could possibly want to see is there. It is so clean, well organized. I have some OCD tendencies.
Same.
And so you would absolutely love Japan, because you get there and you're like, whoa, not only is there a system, but I can see it and it works and everything's clean and everybody's well mannered. It's safe. It is. So I love it. It appeals to my OCD.
Wow.
I loved India because it was the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
So
that's cool too.
You see Japan, which is a very affluent country.
For sure.
go see India. I have never seen squalor like that before in my life. That's the experience that you need. That's the perspective that a lot of people need, right? That's life. To me, I think travel is the secret to life. It is exposure. It is perspective. That's how you get the sense of community. When you see other countries around the world, the way they do things, and you see the have-nots in other countries, it is not like here.
No.
Hey folks, my podcast Primary Care is sponsored by Rougiette Ready, the latest pharmaceutical advancement in erectile dysfunction. This is a sublingual compounded treatment using 3 ingredients, sildenafil, tadalafil, and apomorphine, and it works up to 5 times faster than pills and chewables. We give you a promo code Primary Care for 20% off your first order and free shipping. Now, let's get back to the content.
And it's interesting too, we love to complain about homeless people and the squalor that we see on the streets, in every major city in the United States at this point, but it's exactly. And if we took some education from other countries out there that do it well, like Japan, again, it's about community. These are our brothers and sisters that are sleeping on the streets. These are people who maybe have mental health crisis or problems going on. These are people with addiction problems. But of course, we can't get to that level until everyone understands that we are a unit. We're not an individualist society.
Completely agree. And, part of that has to normalize and understand and support mental health.
Yes.
That is so critical. I mean, even in our own personal development, our own path that we walk, right? I didn't really start walking my mental development path and really investing into my mental health, I think probably until I was 40. I've always been very big on physical fitness. I've always been doing athletics. I've always been competing. I've always been doing sports. I learned how to meditate and do sports. My meditation was for sports, and it was so effective. And, classic me, who doesn't connect dots, as quickly as others might. I'm like 40 and I'm like, oh, I could apply meditation to my life. And I'm talking to my buddy about this. He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, no shit, that's what it's for. Dude.
Right.
And so I started doing the meditation. I started doing a lot of journaling, started going to therapy. So it's like now I feel like I'm coming into my own. Not only am I keeping my physical fitness, but I've got my mental part. And, with anything that we do, it is 75% mental and it is 25% physical.
Yeah,
so
I talk to this about with patients a lot. Like, what are you doing for your mental fitness? And no one really knows how to answer that question.
yeah, right? I mean, like
even me. You would think too, I think, a prime and great place to learn these skills would be like elementary school, middle school, high school.
It's got to start young. That's really where it should.
Yeah, going to a private Christian school, we had Bible class for 50 minutes every day. Imagine if that 50 minutes was like learning how to take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
For just one hour a day,
Yeah.
Learning different techniques and skills.
It's got to start young. That's where change happens, right? Because, kids are sponges and that's when they're impressionable. Yeah. And that's when, things can happen generationally, right?
I actually was taught in Christian school that meditation was not good and was of the devil because it was taking your mind away from God. And so you should never have a clear mind. You should.
Which is ironic because that's really what praying is in a way, right? I mean, like it is, you're taking yourself into a place where you are, a lot of times people are visualizing them speaking to however they see God. You're actually, prayer in a lot of ways is meditation.
Absolutely. And I still kind of struggle with getting into the zone. I think that's my biggest hurdle with meditation. Once I'm like there, which takes a minute, I'm good and I get a lot out of it. But taking the time, letting myself sit, get quiet, really focus on just silence. I usually go to the breathing because that's the easiest thing for me to focus on. Just monitor your breathing in and out and try to exclude everything else. Do you have like a shortcut or like a easy way
for me, I do better with routines.
Gotcha.
My meditation is always at the end of the day because I have a hard time turning my brain off.
That's a good idea.
My work is very challenging. I get done with days, I'm like, my brain is soup.
Sure. Yeah.
But it doesn't stop churning.
Right.
And, I'm an empath, so I got like family stuff. I've got, the social stuff. My brain's always just grinding. And so at the end of the day, when I'm physically tired, now I need to cool my brain down. And so I write in my journal. I have entries for reflection and gratitude at the end of my day.
Sure.
And then I focus on finding a quiet place and I just lay down and I focus on my breathing is number one. And that tends to get me down. After about 5 minutes, if I can't get my brain to stop, I get up, go wash dishes. I go do,
Something,
you know,
yeah.
but not anything like super like
Sure.
mentally stimulating. And then I'll go back and I'll do it again.
really
And
good
9
idea.
times out of 10, I'm able to get into that mental state for good, effective meditation if I do that.
You know, one of the things that you just mentioned that is usually my pitfall is that I get into that similar space, and instead of thinking of something like, let me do something physical that's sort of one note, washing the dishes, getting a task done, I pull out my phone.
Yeah, the phone is the...
Ooh, that'll take you right out of meditation,
And-
and it'll be the last thing you want to do when you put your phone down.
Yep. No, for real, because I mean, what's in your phone? All the social media stuff. I mean,
I know.
you look and there's a text
You're
message from
behind.
somebody, and
You're-
now you're,
Yes,
you know,
your emails, and then you're behind on something, and you have something coming up. But ultimately, I think the most important thing that I'm walking away with meeting you is that I have got to start traveling more. And I travel a lot, but you are super inspiring, and it is as simple as just making a plan and seeing what you're able to do. You don't have to go to Japan. You can go to 2 towns over and get something out of visiting, you know, and just opening your perspective.
yeah, absolutely.
I definitely need to increase my meditation. I need to take these skills that you've kind of harnessed and use them in my own life. I think meditating at the end of the day would be really successful for me, and trying to focus on when my brain is not quite ready, just entertain it with something sort of one note, like you mentioned. I think would be
If
really
you're
helpful.
having trouble getting your brain in the right frame of mind, something was impactful during the day that was negative or whatever that's just got you busy.
Right.
When I started putting my gratitude entries at the end of my day,
Yeah.
it changed a lot because now I'm going into meditation with a completely different frame of mind. I'm not focused on anything that's negative. Now I'm thinking about, oh, that was pretty awesome. Like, I'm really grateful for, you know,
Yeah.
these people and these experiences, you know, the things that are afforded to me. It helped me a lot. So you can try that too if you want.
Yeah, and I think we have so much in common. I know that
Yeah.
we have a limited time today, but I would love to have you back. I want to get further into your empath type traits, because I am a huge empath. It kind of pushes me over the edge sometimes, but also how you live your life is very similar to me. I think also I want to get more into your cancer research.
Yeah.
There's so much to offer that you have to give. So I hope you'll come back.
I would be happy to. I mean, that's a completely different nerdy side of me.
I love
Like,
it.
I literally have the process of DNA translation tattooed across my back. Like, that's how nerdy I am.
Okay.
So
see,
anytime, I'd be happy to come
and
back.
we
to
may
it.
have to go through that process and translate. I need to recap my genetics classes. And so where can people find you though if they just want to kind of reach out and say hello?
Instagram is IYOLO-twice.
Cool.
So it's IYOLOTWYSCE.
Gotcha.
So
you do live only once, twice.
yes, I know. So
I love it.
You remember YOLO? Like,
Yeah.
that was a big
Oh my
thing,
God,
and
it
it
was-
used to just drive me nuts. So I was like, I YOLO twice.
Perfect.
You only live once, twice. Like,
There you go.
Only a few people are like, that's ridiculous.
You truly live that though. I mean, you
Yeah.
really do
my
get
mantra.
to explore all that life has to offer. So again, I think next time you come back, you'll have even more stories for us.
Yes. Cheers. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Add us on Instagram at Primary Care Pod. Catch up on past episodes and don't miss out on new ones. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify at Primary Care Pod.